Hey guys, welcome to Gaming Under the Influence. I can barely say that, but my name's Alex, this is Mike, and so today we're gonna be kind of shooting the shit a little bit. Mike wrote a bunch of stuff, but I'm not gonna follow it. We're just gonna talk, and you're gonna read a little bit of it. But
I'll do my best.
yeah, why don't you give me a little 101 on what we're drinking
before
here?
we get into this week's subjects, I guess we could talk a little bit about a beer that I believe we've drank before on camera, but
Probably, but who cares?
these are my last two cans, and I just really wanted a strong stout. They're hard to find in the summertime. You know, Bolshevik Bastard's still made by Nickelbrook. We had that the other week, but this is the Long Dark Voyage to Uranus Imperial Stout from Sawdust City. The variant with coffee and vanilla in it, and it's exactly like what it sounds like. It's really,
pretty rich.
For an Imperial Stout. It's definitely like firstly, it's not nearly as boozy as the other offerings. I can tell you that much. You gotta let the other one sit in like a glass before you drink them, otherwise it tastes like alcohol. And it's also not as it tastes more like a porter if I had to call it anything. No, it's more like chocolatey and like smooth.
It seems really rich to me. I don't know if it's just my palate right now, but it seems
I don't know if it's just
very
my dead smoker's taste buds, but yeah.
Maybe.
It's smooth. It's smooth. I enjoyed it a lot anyways. These stouts are hard to come by in the summer. Fucking please make more next year, boys.
Do it.
Yes. But I guess without any more ado, maybe we should start talking about some video games. What do you think, man?
I think so. We're
Yeah.
still high off the Fire Emblem train. That's
Still ripping the
whatever that
Fire
means,
Emblem. Yeah.
I've been struggling.
Can't
but
put that down. It's really
Mike has been
been absorbing me the past few days. Unlike anything in 2019 so far, really. What have we played? Sekiro, maybe.
Okay, yeah, definitely
Sekiro without question. Like
There have
Sekiro
been a few games.
From Software games will always be my game of the year.
That's like
Will always be my favorite because they just are the best. There's nothing else to say about that. But this is up there. This is close. You know, we're gonna deal with some massive spoilers concerning Fire Emblem Three Houses here. So if you don't want to hear about probably one of the most important occurrences in the game, this is where you stop watching. But there's a massive plot twist that occurs. To me, it was massive. About 25 or 30 hours into the game, the first act of the game is about over, I guess. And it turns out that Flame Emperor you keep seeing who's fucking with everything, and you think it's that other professor, but it actually turns out to be Edelgard. And man, I invested so heavily. Like, I invested heavily in Edelgard for the first 25. I've been talking about it so much. She was like my favorite character. I invested so heavily in her. She had all my best items, all my shit. And I was like, man. So I took her betrayal of the church like super personally. I was pissed, man. Though there are earlier hints, that Edelgard is the Flame Emperor. She's, in the support and story conversation, she frequently denigrates the Church of Syros and what she perceives as the unfair social order instituted by the church after the War of Heroes. You know that shit at the beginning that it shows. Yeah. We mistakenly referred to that last video, but that was in fact the War of Heroes, which established the peace of Fodlan 1,000 years ago. And the sheer novelty of this plot twist, this Shyamalan twist aside, the plot occurrence, to me, it just renders really explicit, like what we touched on last week as one of the central concepts or tensions of the game world between the church and empire in this historical case, because before the emperor was on the side of the church, between the forces of stability and tradition versus revolution and progress, as Edelgard blatantly fucking mentions on more than one occasion. During the unification of the continent 1,000 years before the game takes place, the forces of Syros fought alongside the empire actually against Nemesis, this guy called the King of Liberation, who turned on the progenitor god, the goddess, another spoiler, the protagonist is this god, slaughtering the children of this progenitor god or goddess. It becomes incarnate in men or women indifferently, and creating these artificial crest stones. The crests were actually created by the King of Liberation, not by the goddess.
Oh, really?
He killed the children of the goddess and took their bones and parts and blood, and with the help of the atheistic and technologically advanced nation of Agartha, I think they're to the west, he made the crests.
This is a Nintendo game.
Yeah, it's something, yeah. It's in fact revealed that the crests, like I just said, and the relics even, were a bid for divine power created from the god's slaughtered children. And in the present, the church went on to conceal this, of course, but the weapons are in fact divine, more so than you would think. They weren't given to them by the goddess. They literally are her, her parts. Wow. In the present and at the unification of Fodlan and Millennium Past, the game universe is, to my mind, essentially defined by this contest between two perspectives on reality. This, I'm using terms from Mao Zedong's book on contradiction here, because I think like people in the opposite camp, of which I'm very much a part, he adequately describes these two ways of looking at reality, just like the game. This metaphysical worldview, which countenances that nature is a stable thing. It's created. It has form. With determinate goals or teleology involved. and things are what they are for a reason, you know, with a derivative like bevy of hierarchical social institutions that implies, like the church and the nobility, etc. And the other option, B, being this dialectical worldview where in reality and all things are like plastic. There's instability and an eternal constant as the only eternal constant, and all change or movement is about this revolution between contradictions. You know, Edelgard seeks to resolve this, right? Just
yeah. Wow,
society has these 2 points of
heavy,
tension. I don't like the fact that people at the bottom are there without deserving where they are, and people at the top are there without doing any work. Like, she probably rightly calls out that this is ridiculous, right? But her solution is to abolish this contradiction, essentially, to institute a new social order and do away with the goddess altogether, you know? Just like, incidentally, the people of Agartha, who kind of stimulated the King of Liberation's rebellion 1,000 years ago and taught him how to make the crests out of the goddess's parts, you know?
Man, you've done your fucking homework on this one, eh?
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
Super.
So essentially the player's mid-game choice is between kind of deferring to a reality that it's before human agency, it's just the way it is, and the desire to usurp and recreate the same according to her own image, just like Adam in Rapture. You know?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Though flawed and deceptive, essentially, it turns out, the church preserves the order of nature instituted by what they call the progenitor god, whilst Edelgard seeks by her own natural power to decide what the world is, what's good, and what's evil for her to do. Her factions like usurpation of form, a desire to impose and change meaning. It's further exhibited by the fact that they transform villagers into monsters to use as weapons. Like, it's their shit. They go out and they mess with the way that things are and transform them into new things at the political level and even the physical bodies of their subjects and stuff like that. So I like that this is the idea behind these games. Like, just like in the past we talked about
nowhere for you, right? Like, you didn't know.
I always thought like, oh, it's a fantasy thing, but I thought it was relatively like shallow, like you know, Knights of the Seven Grail or whatever Netflix anime kind of stuff. But it's like thematically
so this is
dense,
pretty deep and like out there from what you expected from.
I mean,
Fire Emblem,
the presentation of course isn't the same, but this could, like, you know, get into the ring with Silmarillion for its like cosmological density. Like, it's a smart thing, you know, and like most fantasy, and like Tolkien says about fantasy, the the superficial simplicity of the symbols and of these course of events I just described to you, it makes it like a adequate, you know, a garden for you to grow symbols in, right? Like, you can use it to talk about a lot of fundamental metaphysical ideas. Like, you know, I just said Mouse sits there and writes a book about these two competing ways of looking at reality, and here these same themes are in a video game, right?
On display, a Nintendo game of all fucking a Nintendo exclusive.
Not to say they're Maoist ideas, they're just to say these are like eternal ideas contemplated by people on either sides of that divide, and it's cool that somebody making a fantasy game is interested in touching on that stuff at all, explicitly or implicitly, knowingly or unknowingly, right?
That, honestly, most people will miss that.
I don't even mean to say it like they were sitting there intending to insert this thematic element into the game. Just to say, like, to my conception, these are fundamental beliefs and beliefs about and aspects of reality, and therefore anything that, you know, deals with the simple and fundamental things fantasy touches on will necessarily have to touch on these things too, and they definitely do, right? And it's presented very well. I'm astounded, really. Like, it's awesome. Somebody sat there, and I just watched this great documentary. We should put a link to it in this description. About the history of the Fire Emblem series, and like the guy who invented it, whose name embarrassingly enough escapes me right now. He left well before the entries we played, but
because there have been some old
they came out before the Nintendo consoles on the Famicom or something.
They
were old, but like from the very beginning, this guy was like obsessed with building like epic fantasy worlds. He was like plotting out on paper, like, in this year this happened in my world, and this year like,
look at that.
He was like that was a heavy component of Fire Emblem, from the beginning. So I love that, man.
That's cool.
People aren't doing that in the West anymore. Incidentally, this genre of literature practically like was conceived by Western minds,
corporate
and here
business, man.
It's dead, or it's turned into some like gray, like morally relative, like leavened mass by the like anti-Tolkiens of our age. Well, it's been fun.
Thanks for
internets. Thank you for humoring us.
Fucking wonderful opinion.
Signing off.
Good night.